Hi everyone, Megan here from Romance by the Book with the lovely Marielle.
Hello, hello.
And this is our final week for January's book of the month, The Sins We Hide by Scarlett Cole. It's been so fun.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep,
fun, so
it
exciting.
was an exciting way to start the year for sure.
Yeah, definitely. So we ended off last week with them finally going home to his actual house for the first time. Um and
It's
so
the first time that Gwen had left the clubhouse.
the compound or whatever, yeah.
We have left the clubhouse with Clutch once,
Mhm.
twice before
A
because
couple
he's
times, yeah.
um gone to investigate some things for the club
Yeah,
surrounding Gwen's situation, but
right.
still she's been stuck in there. So it's kind of
Yeah.
nice to see her out. I mean, I guess she went on that picnic, but that doesn't count because they tried to shoot her.
Since they tried to
So
kill her. Yeah. So they have breakfast, and he takes her on a ride with two prospects kind of tailing them, like for safety. And so they walk around and talk about what things will look like if she stays. And he even
it's
tells her
like a date.
it is. It's really
Like they're
sweet.
holding hands and having ice cream and just
Yeah.
like
Strolling
normal
around, looking
life.
at stuff and being all cute and cuddly. And but they're having serious conversations this whole time. They talk about what it'll look like if she stays. He even tells her that he will leave the club if she asked him to, which she is shocked by the way.
I think
Um,
he is shocked
I
too.
think I agree. I think he doesn't know he's going to say that till it comes out of his mouth. But then he basically says to her, "Only ask me to do that if you absolutely cannot take it one more day and are miserable, because I will be heartbroken if I have to leave, but I will do
He's
it."
also says in that conversation, if there are if there are things that are bothering you, tell me, we will try to fix it.
Yeah,
If there's no way to fix anything, if there's no way to
right.
fix the issues, then we'll talk about walking. But
Yeah. But it'll hurt me to do it. So don't
yeah,
ask me that unless you absolutely cannot take it anymore.
and we can't fix the problems that are there. Like if
Yeah.
it's um yeah.
And so she promises that she won't ask that unless she can't take it.
I
So
think
they
she's so touched that he would even
even
she's not
consider it.
expecting him to say or even think that that's a possibility.
Yeah.
So, and it is fair. I mean, I thought it
Yeah.
was fair too.
Yeah, I agree. So they enjoy their day and then they get a message. Clutch gets a message from Cillian about returning a favor. And he's like, basically in the message, he's like, "We're meeting on neutral ground. This is a personal favor to you for what you did for my niece. This has nothing to do with your club. Like,
Like he
just so
doesn't
you
say
know."
this has nothing to do with your club, but the way
Right.
that it's worded, Clutch is like, okay, I see.
I'm
Like
supposed to come
the
there by
choice of
myself.
words, the
Yeah.
choice of words is very
Very
is clear to
specific.
him.
Yeah.
He's supposed to
Uh
come on his own. It's supposed to be
yeah, like no
yeah.
cut, because the club there, the like bar they're going to is like a neutral spot, like where all types of people gather, and it's
So you're not
meant to be that
allowed.
way.
This made me think of Scotland when I was when I was in Scotland in the fall. There was we were in this pub and it said no, it was no club colors, but
Right.
meaning
Yeah.
football.
Right.
If you
Right. Like
it
they
was
don't want fights
interesting.
in there or anything.
Uh-huh.
It's
And
like
I
a
was
neutral zone.
yeah.
That's
So it
cool.
was interesting to me that it was don't antagonize people by showing up here in
Right.
your soccer team or football team's jersey or whatever
Right.
because it's going to cause problems. So it was kind of the same sort
Yeah,
of
for sure. That's definitely
situation.
similar. And so he agrees to meet with him. And so they go back to the clubhouse and he takes all their stuff up to his room. And when he gets back, he sees Gwen in the middle of slapping Suze in the face. And she wants Suze out of the clubhouse for suggesting that Clutch will be back with Suze in no time, like that Gwen isn't enough for him, et cetera, et cetera.
And it's
And
she's the interesting thing is she at that point isn't saying you need to be banished or she's taking
yeah,
care of her own business.
yes, absolutely.
But Clutch walks in and he is like, oh, and Tessa, he's gonna go save. And Tessa's like, no, no, you stay here with me.
Yeah, she has to take care of it on her own, which she does. And then she says to Suze, after this whole like interlude, then she says to him, to her, basically, like, "You know what? I want you out of here." And
But
Suze
it's
is like,
after
"This, you
later
can't kick me
Clutch
out of here."
come. Hmm.
And so she looks at Clutch and she's like, "Can I kick her out of here?" And he's like, fine with me. And she looks at her brother, who of course is the ultimate authority, and is like, "Can I kick her out of here?" And he's like, "Mm-hmm." And she's like, "Okay, bye."
Yeah, yeah.
And nobody stands up for her or says anything, including Skylar, who's supposedly her little like BFF, but like clearly she knows when, it's a losing battle. She doesn't
She
think.
tucks herself next to Uther,
Uh-huh.
club president, and just keeps her mouth shut.
Yep.
And it is interesting to see because the way that it all flows, right? Like
Yeah.
Clutch sees what's happening. Tessa's like, don't save her, let her do her thing.
Hmm.
But as soon as they kind of lock eyes, she is like, this girl said
This
this. Is
girl.
that
Mhm.
true? Like, is this what you? And he's like,
Right.
mm-mm. I do not, I am not going anywhere near her.
No.
And then it's so funny how this like
She's kind
matron
of
of
like
the
Mama
club
Bear. Yeah.
is trying to like, okay, now you can go to her. And Clutch is like, I mean, I guess I'm gonna pretend like I'm doing this because she said
Because
so,
she said it
but
was okay.
it was kind of funny.
It's very cute. And so after she leaves, Clutch and Gwen are talking, and he's like, "Okay, well, like, try not to start any more fights. I have to go." She's
Yeah.
like,
I
"Okay."
should, did we mention that Sue's that was like a peeping Tom at one point earlier when they were
They were
like
in the
in the
kitchen or something
kitchen?
making out. Yeah.
She's a
I was
weird
very
one.
jealous.
And
Well, sorry.
no, go ahead.
It's interesting because at the beginning, it was very clear that she thought she was getting somewhere with Clutch, but you're in his POV, so you know that wasn't true. But like clearly, she thought she was like highfalutin, and that was not accurate.
It was very,
So
yeah, that was interesting. And I
yeah,
almost thought that like, because when she was like popping up, also like trying to like, it seemed like she was either trying to make him jealous or do something with the whole Nero, like make out
and
in
he'd
front of
come
them.
out and
Like,
cared less. Yeah,
no. But I was starting to wonder if she like what her deal was. But then he's just like, get out of here. And she has to get out of there.
yep. And
And
now
then
she's not
that's,
allowed back. So there
yeah,
goes that idea.
whoops.
So Clutch goes to meet Cillian at this bar, and he's like realizing that maybe this bar isn't as neutral as they thought, because clearly these people know Cillian, and he's clearly like the
Well,
deferential,
Killian
giving the
walks in
deferential
and is like
treatment.
nod and like, yes, I'll have my usual. I mean, he doesn't say
Yeah.
that, but it's clear that
So
he's
so Cillian basically says he started digging into things after everything that happened with Iris and her shooting, and he found something unexpected. And I wrote down the quote because he says, "The
mhm.
person behind the hit on your president and his family was your dad." And
And Clutch is so taken aback by this that he has to like translate in his head, like dad means dad, right? He's
yeah,
talking about my father, and it's
my
like,
dad. And then it's
um,
like, "Oh shit." Like he has this moment of like, "Oh no." And so he is shook and he can't figure
I
out why his dad would do that because he
I
doesn't
was
doubt what Killian's
I
saying to
was
him.
completely in love with Killian at this moment though,
Yeah.
because he is like, this is the meeting that we are going to have, and here's how it will go. I will tell you the data that I have gathered, the information. Then I will tell you what I think it means, and
Yeah.
that is what he does. He
And
tells
yeah, oh yeah.
him, these are the things that we found. This
Right.
is
Well,
the
and in his head, Clutch is like, what? He can't figure out a reason in the world why his dad would do this, even though he doesn't doubt what Killian's saying. He like can't make it make sense.
and
And
Killian
especially
is,
after all this time, it's been like 15 years or 13 years or something.
but Killian
So,
has a clear idea. He's
oh yeah,
like,
definitely.
I'm pretty sure your dad wants to like makes his family be the president.
Right. Well, and he
And
says kind of like how he assumes it went down. Like clearly he's managed to pull some favors with some Los Reyes that are in prison with him. And he managed to put out a hit on everyone once he got confirmation where Gwen and her mom were. They still don't know for sure how he got that, but clearly he got it at some point.
mhm.
And so, but because of what happened to Iris, he is now on the Irish mob hit list. So basically, this is a courtesy, Killian telling him, like, your dad's gonna die now. So just
Yeah,
you
I'm
can
like
go take
when
care of what
we
you
say
need to, and that's
blacklist,
it.
we
Yeah.
mean like real
We mean
blacklist.
like he's about to be dead.
And he
So
tells him like Clutch is like, well, give me a week because he also like if this is I need to like we need to figure out what's going on because he absolutely has betrayed our club and we don't really know what this is about. So
right. Well,
and
and
he
in
was
his
like,
head, he's like, he's dead no matter what. Because if he really did this, our club is gonna take him out. Like, forget about the mob.
Yeah,
But
but the Cillian is like, okay, that's fair. I will give you
yeah,
7 days on day 8. And I'm like, oh wow. Like,
on day 8,
and
bye-bye.
he
Yeah.
does say that like that they have relationships with people, connections in
Mhm.
places.
Yeah.
And therefore they have found all this info. And you get, I mean, I got the feeling that it's like, oh, they've got connections like
All over the place.
FBI,
Yeah.
in the prison, like all, even though we know that like the motorcycle club also has connections,
Right.
this Irish mob, like those
That's like a
people,
whole other level. Yeah, for sure. And then that's made
they're,
very clear in this moment, for sure.
which made me a little bit more understanding about why when they found out who Iris was, everyone was like, oh no.
Don't touch her. We've already done enough. Yeah, it's not great. So he agrees to give him 7 days.
Oh, he also says a thing like that big guy that keeps hanging out near my niece's house. Like,
He's gonna die too if you don't stop him, basically. And he's like, "Oh no, Spark, what are you doing?" Like, that's what he's thinking is that. So, Clutch needs to come up with some kind of loyalty test for his dad because his dad's in prison. So, like, it's not like you can just go talk to him about stuff. Like, it has to be kind of coded. He has to kind of like figure out how to like make it so that his dad, he can figure out what's going on.
also his dad, if this is true, like what he has just found out is
Yeah.
true, then he can't just go in there and be like, hey dad, did you, because
Did
like
you put a hit on our president? Yeah.
clearly he's like, that's not the direct approach is probably not going to give you any kind of solution. So
No.
he's trying to really think through who to talk to, who needs what information,
Mhm.
and at what time, because also he feels like bringing this information to the club without proof or without any kind of confirmation is gonna make him look suspect and make
Right.
things like it's just messy. It's so
It's
messy, and
messy.
he's trying to
Yeah.
figure out how to like clean it up a little.
Yeah, and also just to, like, verify that all these things are true so that he can go to the club and be like, "Look, this happened, and also I didn't have anything to do with it," because obviously that's a big concern for him too.
Well, like once the Irish mob talks to you privately, they're
Yeah,
gonna have some questions.
for sure. So
Oy.
in the early morning hours, Gwen, wakes up and she can tell he hasn't slept. Like, he's in bed with her, but, like, he has not been sleeping. And so they have sex, and then he
And
tells
this is
her.
also like a continuation from last night. Like she's
Yeah,
like she was aware when he came home
yeah.
that something was off, and he was not trying to
He
tell
just,
her
like,
about it.
cuddled up with her. He didn't try to, like, initiate anything or whatever, like, and
But she's also like his whole body was tense.
yeah.
He clearly did not fall asleep when I like he like it just
Yeah, he's a mess, and
something.
she can tell. And so he tells her that, he's gotta make the 5-hour drive to see his dad, and that he'll tell her all about it when he gets back.
She has some news as well, but because he's being so weird, like she's not sure. And then when he tells her he's got to go, like, I can't talk right now, whatever, she just kind of doesn't say anything.
Yeah.
She has a job interview, and it's like she
She
was
was like
going to
a
tell him.
manager of hotel maids, where she was before, and she's basically got an interview for, like, a similar position in a local hotel.
Hmm.
And she was excited about it, but yeah, she's decides just not to mention it. Um, and so she kinda goes back to sleep. He leaves it's like before dawn. So later on, she goes down for breakfast and she finds King in the kitchen and Skylar is, like, cooking for him. And,
And she's like, why can't you make your own cereal? Like, this is
right,
so.
right, like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, she will, so, like, why wouldn't I let her?" Basically. So, she tells her brother about the interview, and he says that he'll take her because they still, there's still, like, danger and stuff like that. They're not really sure what's gonna happen next or when.
Yeah, I mean, he is at first kind of like, no, you're not going. And
Yeah,
then she's like, but I
I
am.
am though.
So he's gonna go with her.
Yeah.
Skylar is being like he asks he tells Skylar to make breakfast for his sister as well.
Mhm.
I think part of it is kind of like trying to put her in her place a little bit.
For sure.
And Skylar is being nicer than Gwen is
usual.
accustomed to,
Mhm.
except that she still gets some digs in.
Yeah. About
Um,
her like being a maid and stuff like that.
like if she wants a job, she
She
should
can
could
clean
just
up around
clean the
here.
men's rooms here. And
Yeah.
I'm like, back off, lady.
Yes. She clearly, again, another one who thinks she's highfalutin and doesn't realize that she's not.
But Gwen, and she's not the first one, right? Like there's been
Yeah.
other people who have mentioned, Tessa has mentioned, and
Yeah.
Gwen is a bit like there's something. Like he might not be in love with her or whatever, but there's something.
Something she's clearly doing for him because he hasn't been with anybody else. Like he's been with her only
Well,
the last 2 months or whatever.
that's what Tessa said, but
Yeah.
Gwen also notices like some sort of like something, like a
Well,
little
like he calls her
softening or a little
Sky or
something.
something, and like nobody else calls her that. And he's like, and so Gwen's kind of like, yeah, something's going on there,
Hmm.
even if he doesn't want to like admit it or whatever.
Yeah.
So meanwhile, Clutch goes to the jail to see his dad. And through their talk, he realizes that his dad did do the things that Cillian accused him of, and he's a traitor. And he
One
can't
of the
believe it.
things that like upsets him the most is that he knows about that like he says a detail about when being shot, right? Like
It's
he
like a
says something
drive-by or
about
something.
well,
Like
he
he says something
says
about it
that
being a drive-by.
no, he
Oh.
says that there were holes in the
Oh, at
picnic
the
in the
beach.
blanket in the picnic blanket or the
Yeah.
blanket that they were laying on or something.
Yeah.
And he is like, I did not tell him
Mm-mm.
that. Like there were several things that he had not mentioned that like he wouldn't have known this.
Yeah.
Um, and there were some other things that he said that made it pretty clear that he was,
Yeah. That he's the
that was
traitor.
him.
And so he can't believe it, and he doesn't really know what to do about it either. He doesn't warn his dad about the Irish being after him. He decides he's just not going to tell him that. Um, because he still doesn't know if that's even going to happen or if his club is going to be the one that's going to deal with his dad.
Well, he doesn't warn him about any of the stuff,
No,
honestly. Like he's just like, okay, well, see you later.
gotta
Like he
go.
tries to
Yeah.
he tries to make the conversation like as normal as he can.
Yeah.
Um, but it's clear that he like in his head, he's like I'm sure like buzzing in his head because he
Yeah.
does not, he's like, oh no, this is a thing.
This is bad.
And when he leaves, he makes a call to their like they have a guard on the inside and is like, like I
Who's
need
been here?
logs.
Who's he
Who's
calling? Like, what's he
I,
been
I
up to?
need I need to know who has visited. I need the call logs, but also he has a phone. And he's like, you want me to take your dad's phone away? And he's like, no, I want you to look in that phone and see
And
who he's been calling.
yeah,
Because that's the phone. Like if he has a burner phone inside, then
right.
that would have been what he would use to
That would
contact.
have been how he contacted people. Yeah.
So he clearly like he's trying to gather all the information. And if his dad's a traitor, then and I think for him, when you're reading it, it's like 50-50, like neck and neck. The a level of upsetness betraying the club, but also he almost got Gwen killed. Like if he had succeeded, he would have like Landon would have never seen Gwen again. And that like is equally as like upsetting to him,
Of
I think,
course.
as the club.
Oh my gosh. So when he gets home, Gwen is excited to tell him that she got the job. And he kind of tries to muster up some enthusiasm for her, but he's clearly like not with it. He apologizes and says he has to talk to King as soon as possible. And he's
She
like, I'm really
deflates
sorry. It's very important though. Like, trust me when I say it's very important. Like, it's not
she
just,
deflates a bit there, but also as she does, he notices that she is like wearing a sundress and it's like she's kind of dressed up for him. And he's
like
like,
hoping he'll
oh
take her
shoot.
somewhere to celebrate or something. Yeah, and he can tell, yeah, she's very let down, but he's got to talk to King. Like this is obviously the most important thing at the moment. So, he goes to tell King everything, including that Skylar is the one who's been messaging with his dad
But
and
by this point
dad.
he has received the logs
Yep.
and
Because yeah,
there is
5 hours
that
critical
one
to her back.
name, S, whatever the last name was, and it King also know like he hears
Yeah.
the
As soon as he
S
hears it.
whatever and he's just like, oh.
So she's the one who's been writing out their positions, and his dad is the one who's been, like, calling in these favors to try
And
to get Gwen killed.
King is obviously like angry at himself, but also like sorry, trying to think through like when could this have happened? And it's like, oh, she was in the room when my dad called me and told me like, when his ride,
Right. He was like the
he
weather was bad, he couldn't meet them or whatever, and, like, yeah, and she's just
the thing
always
that's
around.
interesting about that though, to me, which I don't know if it's interesting to you to anybody, but I was like, that clearly the hits were coordinated so that like, and we have been told that like, oh, Uther was supposed to be with his dad during that ride, but the weather was and they couldn't make it. And but she would have known that.
Yeah.
So I'm like curious if she was playing some kind of game on her own
I
too,
don't know if
because
she was hoping to save him or, like, she just knew that, like, they even with if he wasn't there, they weren't gonna back off. Like, that was still a perfect time to get rid of his dad, so they still went through with it even though he wasn't there, but I think part of her was probably relieved that, he didn't get killed because she seemed to care about him a lot more than he cared about her, and, she could have been acting, like, to get close and try to get information, but I think there was definitely a blurry line there for her, for sure.
also though her like security within the club and her place within the club was kind of tied to him. So anyway,
Yeah,
I I I don't know that we will ever get any answers on that front,
yeah.
but I am very curious. And it's like kudos to you, Scarlett Cole, for like having a secondary character who like maybe isn't in the grand scheme of things that important, but who like I still have questions
Still
and I'm
thinking about
curious
it.
about. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Clutch now has to basically turn around and go back to the jail and tell his dad about the judgment that the club is putting down on him. But first he has to go talk to Gwen without telling her too much because King
But
has
they
basically been
haven't,
like, "You can't tell her XYZ." And he's like, "Okay."
well,
But
I mean, Uther's like we're not telling
we're
anybody
not telling her.
anything
Uh-huh.
because and it's anybody they
Yeah.
are because they still know they know they have a mole, a rat, whatever,
Yeah.
and they need to find more information, like
Yeah.
they still are trying to like connect all the dots so they can take care of the situation in a way that's going to leave it so they're not in danger anymore.
Yeah.
So he was told, like, we are not talking about this to anyone.
Yeah.
Like, and when we're ready, we'll talk to
To everyone in church. Yeah.
everyone, decide, and then go do the thing.
Yeah.
And Clutch is like, well, I'll tell my dad. Like, when the time comes, I'll take care of my dad,
Yeah.
and you take care of Skylar. And
Mhm.
that's, like, that's what was
Right.
decided. But when he goes up to talk to Gwen, Gwen is,
Not having it. They fight because she knows that he's still keeping things from her, and not just about this and she's like, "Look, it's not even about this club business, like, you're hurt. Something is going on, and you're not being honest, and I cannot deal with that. Like, it's one thing, club business, bullshit, whatever, but, like, this is about you and me, and you not telling me about your feelings, and that is not acceptable."
she's kind of like, does this not like have anything to do with me? And he can't, that's
Because it
that kind of
does,
thing.
surely.
But
Yeah.
also she's the most upset is that she is the most upset because she's not able to like be there for him.
Yep.
And she's like, if your emotions and you are hurting, like how can you not let me know what's going
Be here
on
for
that
you.
front? And
Yeah.
she's like, I don't need you to tell me about your illegal business. And he's like, we're not doing anything illegal. And
And she's
she's
like,
just
"Okay,
like, I am not a dummy, like, sir. Anyway.
So he basically tells her just enough, and she kind of figures out the rest, like about his dad. And then she decides it's time. This is back to week 1. She tells him about the letter that she found from her dad to her mom from 6 years
So
before.
that letter that she found is old. It was in with her mom's stuff.
Mhm.
And when she read it, was like, this means something, but I have no
Yep.
idea what it means.
Well, and
And
also just the timing of it. It was only 6 years old, which means he had known where they were at least for that long, if which is like half the time they've been gone.
yeah,
So, like, that's a big deal.
Well, and the whole time the club had been searching for them because they disappeared. So it's like,
He knew where they were. Yeah,
questions had arisen. But she was like, I'm not sharing this with anybody, number one, because I don't know what it means. And number two, like, I don't know if I can trust them or if they would even trust me.
right.
Once, they didn't
Right.
trust her generally, but like
Yeah.
with more information that is, anyway, that is
So
sketchy.
she shows it to him and he's pissed that she kept it a secret, especially as she's sitting here complaining this entire time about how many secrets he's been keeping. And she's like, "Well, we need to go show King." And
She
there's
also is kind of like, I this is one thing. Here are the reasons, my very logical reasons. I did not know if you trusted me.
yeah.
And like, so she's got like very excellent
Yeah.
points that she's making.
Mhm.
And he is just like, damn it, because he's mad, but also he can't really be mad when he hasn't been telling her.
Well, and they're still fighting though, and she's like, "It was a mistake to come here." And he's like, "You do not say that." Like, and he's like, "You and I from now on are facing everything together from the same side. Like, the whole problem here is that we're coming at this from opposite sides and we cannot be that way. Like, we have to be united."
Mm-hmm.
And so they go talk to
She's like,
King.
we are a team.
Yeah. So they go talk to King and he tells Gwen everything about Skylar because Clutch is like, she needs to know because if the lie we're gonna tell Skylar to like entrap her has to do with her, then she needs to know about it or she's gonna say something that
Or what if
messes it all
Skylar
up.
comes and asks her and she's like, what are you talking about? Like,
Right. So he tells her everything about Skylar and their plan, which is to pretend that they're going to spread her mom's ashes by the lake, um,
somewhere secluded.
somewhere that was like important to her parents, and that just the four of them are gonna go. And so she agrees, to perpetuate that if anybody asks her, basically. And then she walks out the door of the office. And Clutch is realizing that he might lose her over all this, like, if he can't figure out how to be more open and be more like what she's asking him for.
Yeah.
And so he follows her outside, and, like, orders her into her car because they're going to his house. And she's like, "No, I'm not going anywhere with you." And he's like, "Yes, you are. Like, we're gonna go fuck it out. Like, you're mad, I'm mad. Like, let's go. We gotta deal with this, right?"
He is like, this is happening, and it's either
This is
happening
happening.
right
Yeah.
here or it's happening in my house. And she's like, okay.
Well, and early on, they set a safe word for her because it was kind of a weird situation. She was basically being held captive. It wasn't like they were gonna hurt her, but, like, they might have, she didn't really know that, and she didn't trust him, and he was like, "Well, you'll have a safe word, and if you say it, then that's it." Like, he basically tells her, like, "You can say your safe word right now, but otherwise we're going home." And so she gets in the car and they go home and yeah, they have some rough and angry sex, but it's also very healing too. It's very hot. They kind of reaffirm their love for each other and their connection, and they agree that they're going to be on the same side from now on.
Yeah, the other thing that's interesting here is that she in the past had said to him, like, he knew that when she's upset or when her life feels out of control, that that she needed to feel like she was fighting for her sex, like when that's
Right.
when this was especially like helpful to her, I guess.
Right.
And so he's doing a thing that he knows will help her, like calm her brain down.
Right.
And but he gives her like outs as they go along. There are
Yeah.
several points in time where he's like,
And he reminds her
you
like of
can
her
do
safe
this.
word and all
Or
that
also,
too.
like, there's a moment where he's like, if you can slide over to that side of the bed and I won't touch you, but if you stay over here. And so it's like he keeps
Right.
giving her options.
Yep.
And so it's interesting because it is like it's consensual. Is that what that's called? Consensual non-consent, where it's
Right.
like, and it's not non-consent at all, but it is like rough, but it's very much consensual, which
Yes.
I thought it was well done.
Yeah.
And it was done in a way where it was like, um super sexy, but still, like, looking back, if you like pull it apart, you can see where he was caring for her
Yeah,
the whole time.
absolutely.
Also, they have gotten at this point, right? They had tested themselves for STDs and they had
Right.
gotten the results back. So
And
at
so
this
this
point,
time was, yeah, this time was for real, for real.
like somewhere in
Yeah,
there, he's like, I got my results, you got your results, excellent. And
we're good to go. Yeah.
you guys.
So 2 days later, they're riding out to go on this like spread her mom's ashes
Oh,
errand.
sorry. He also tells her you can't keep saying you're leaving.
Oh, well,
Like you're either in or you're not. But
yeah,
I can't be
I can't
wondering
do
whether
this.
you're okay.
Yeah,
So sorry.
yeah. So they go to on the fake errand to spread her mom's ashes. And Gwen is super nervous. And so they're riding together, and at one point, King turns off like toward the lake, and her and Clutch stay on the road and keep going.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Wait a minute, like like he can't be there alone. Like what's going on?" And he's like, "No, we have people like waiting for them, to back him up, and nobody else knows where we are, so this is a perfect opportunity for us to slip away and go back to the jail and see my dad."
They have put a vest, like a tiny t-shirt,
Like
sweater,
it was like a
t-shirt,
tank
bulletproof
top,
vest,
like bulletproof vest, I think is how they described it. Yeah.
and um
On
so
both
and
her and King.
it was
King, like, grumbled about it, but they were like, "You're doing it." He was like, "Okay."
yeah.
Um,
So
and so, yeah, so they're protected, and plus, especially for her, because she's on the back of the bike, so if somebody comes up behind them, like, that's protection for him and for her, basically. So they stop, and they're talking about the plan, and she agrees, and then he hears bikes coming, and then when he sees them, he realizes they are not friends.
even before they
So,
come, he's like,
I don't know
who
those
who are
bikes.
those people?
Yeah.
Like he
So it's
knows that they're
3
not
3
supposed to
bad
have anyone
guys
with
coming
them.
toward them, and they have no cover. They're, like, on the side of a road,
The
like,
cover is the
is the
motorcycle.
bike, yeah. So, there's a gunfight. They managed to kill 2 of the bad guys, like, pretty much right
I
away.
mean, Gwen has she's a terrible shot. Like
She is,
she
and she says
knows
that.
how
She's like, "I
to
can use
shoot.
this, but, like, I'm not good at it." And then she gets hit, in the vest, and then they're out of bullets, and there's one guy still standing. So, he's walking
He
toward
has
them.
already called though, like Clutch
Yeah.
has already called and told, like alerted people that
Like, he
they
told
have
Spark that they were in
company.
trouble. Yeah,
And so they just need to like bide their time or buy enough time
by
for
enough
the
time,
club to
yeah.
come.
So the
And
3rd guy's, like,
that's
walking toward them, and they're like, "Oh my god, we're gonna die," and then, thankfully, more bikes appear, which is the backup that he called for, and, they take care of cleaning up the 2 bodies that they dropped, and they leave to go to the jail. He tries to, like, put it off because she did get hit in the vest, and he's like, "I know that that hurts, like, she's not shot, but, like, she's not okay either, you know?" And
but
she's
she
like, "No,
fell
like,
down that
we're
she
doing this."
got hit and like fell down a hill and she's bruised. Like it's
Yeah.
yeah.
But she's ready to be done with all this crap. So they go to the jail, and he goes in. She's waiting for him outside because she can't go in. So he tells his dad that they know what he did and that time's up. And he's like, "I want to know why." And basically, he's like, he's pissed to be rotting away in prison. Back in the day, he was stealing from the club, and Arthur, the former president, figured it out and told him to stop, but he couldn't. That's what those
So
are his words. He told me to stop, but I couldn't.
he did have a like they met in Afghanistan,
Iraq. Yeah.
Iraq.
Yeah.
Sorry, there is other people who are also ex-military, but
Yeah.
these two were in Iraq together. Um, Clutch's dad saved
Arthur's life.
Arthur's life in Iraq, and
Yep.
so Arthur, like what
Owed him
normally if
one.
you're stealing from the club,
Yeah.
you're out.
Bye-bye. Yeah. Out in one
And
way or another. Yeah.
yeah, and so he like we are told that this ended up being a very kind of clean solution, right? Like Arthur had cheated on Gwen's mom
Mhm. She
because
wanted to
idiot.
leave. Mhm.
Um, and she was like, I cannot with this.
Yeah.
And so this was a way for him to orchestrate. She can't leave unless she and be safe. But if she goes into witness protection, she can. Also, and the dad had done this shipment that he had like he basically was stealing it, was coordinating a shipment to be stolen so
By the
that
people he was supposed to sell it to. Like they were
so
going to
that,
get it either way, but this way they got it for free basically, and then they were going to pay him instead of paying the club basically like 50% of what it was worth. And so he had set this up, and I guess Arthur found out about it and decided to use it as his
the
clean
witness
getaway
like the
basically.
clean, so he doesn't die, he goes to jail.
Yep.
The his Arthur's wife leaves
With Gwen.
and is protected.
Yep.
And like he's heartbroken, like clearly we have been told before and will be told again
Yep.
that like when Gwen and her mom left, like that dad was never the same again,
Mhm.
but it's his own damn fault.
Mhm.
And so
Well, and he even says that in that letter. As much as that letter is like a I miss you letter, he says like I know this is because of me and I want to thank you for the sacrifice that you made to protect all of us, and like I'm sorry that it's like this. Like I wish it wasn't.
yeah, so in the end, like I was very happy to get like a satisfying answer as to why this happened, because
Yeah.
up to this point we're not really clear like what the heck
So the
happened and
bottom line is her
who are the
mom
good
did
and bad.
inform on them, but it was on purpose. Like they set her the president set her up to do that on purpose so that she could get away.
But in also by doing that, they cleaned out like
The
someone
problem.
who was a problem for the club
Yep.
in a way that like settled old debts and
Yep.
did like it was
Well,
a
and
very
of
clean
course,
solution.
being like, "Oh, it's not my fault." His dad is like, "I had PTSD. I had been laid off. I was, I couldn't stop stealing, blah blah blah." And then he's like, "I would rather be dead." So this is actually like a perfect punishment. And of course, Clutch is like, "Well, duh. Like Arthur, he didn't want you to die, but he was fucking pissed. Like, of course he's gonna make it a punishment."
Yeah.
Um, so Arthur,
Also, he already like gave you a second chance and you
right, he already warned you, and you couldn't stop. So, Clutch tells his dad, I wrote down the quote, "You go against the code, you have to pay what's owed," which is their like code for like you're dead, basically. And he says, "I know." And then he tells his son he loves him and that it's not his fault, which I think Clutch needed to hear. Because this whole time before this, like anything he did admit to, he was like, "I wanted you to be president," like almost like putting it on him. And he's like, no, he says to
like
him,
I
like,
did
"This
this
is
for
not your
you,
fault."
but
Right.
no, he didn't.
So Clutch goes outside to find Gwen, and she, is comforting him. And she says something to him before he went in along the lines of like, sort of recognizing that Clutch is almost like a persona he puts on. It's not like it's him, but it's not all of him. And she's like, Clutch needs to go in there and deal with his dad, but like, I'm going to be here for Landon when he comes out, basically.
And like
And
warns him
yeah,
because it's yeah, like he's not all only hard all the
right.
time.
No one is. But yeah,
We
so
know
she kind
he's
of
a
says,
soft
right.
boy.
Yeah.
It's just that he lives in a hard world.
Yeah, for sure. And so she kind of says to him, like, I think we'll just have to like work through losing our dads together. Like, because she's like, I basically came home to find out my dad was dead. Like, I haven't dealt with any of that yet. So, like, we're just going to go through this together, basically.
Yeah.
And then he pulls out the cut he had made for her that says property of Clutch on it, and says he wants her to be his old lady. And he's like, I'm gonna marry you later too, but like that's for later. For now, like this, I want to give you this and I want you to take it. And she says, am I Landon's girlfriend too? And he's like, yeah, you're that too. And she's like, okay. So she takes it, and it's very sweet.
It
Uh,
is interesting too, because when she walked into the club and saw somebody, oh, I forgot whose
yeah,
old lady, it was Tessa who was
it was
wearing,
Tessa, the older lady. Yeah,
but I forgot who
can't
her,
remember his name. Yeah,
but anyway,
yeah. Track,
she was
track and
like
Tessa.
property, yeah, she was
Yeah.
like property of,
Yikes.
and
Yeah.
and she's still kind of like, I mean,
Still
I
a little
guess,
yikes.
but they have had conversations. I mean, he has said that he is not like interested in any other people. He like they've talked
They've
through.
hammered that all out. Yeah, for
Mhm.
sure. And so now he needs to go back and talk to the club and let them know everything that happened and all that his dad admitted to. And so they get back to the house. She's gonna shower and wait for him. And she's like, I'm gonna go to bed, but like wake me up when you come back, you know? And he's like, you can go to bed, but I want you to be naked and only wearing that cut. And she's like, I mean, okay.
She is like, haha, whatever. And then when she gets in there, she's like,
It's funny.
actually.
There's this whole scene where she takes a shower and she like dries her hair, whatever, she gets ready and she puts it on and she's like, I look hot. Like, is it weird to think that like that you look hot yourself? Like, she's like, but I get why he wanted to see this because, like, damn,
She's in
it's
the
very
mirror,
cute.
like, this cover, ooh.
It's
And
very
then
cute.
he shows up and is like, oh, wow.
Yeah, and he arrives and he is very happy with these results. And that is the end. And in the epilogue, it's Christmas time, and his two younger brothers are visiting from Florida for the first time in years. 3
Since the
years, I
dad
think,
went
since
to
he's seen them.
jail. Since the dad went to jail.
Well, he'd seen them some, like he said he hasn't seen them in 3 years. So he did visit them some. They never came there. He, like, went
Well,
to visit them.
yeah, the
Um,
aunt took them and
they were not allowed to come anywhere around club stuff. So he would go visit them, but then he kind of grew wary of that because the aunt was always so, like, rude about his life and his dad and everything. And so he hasn't seen them in 3 years. And now one's about to be in college in New York City, so he's gonna be a lot closer and he's gonna be able to visit him a lot more. And the other one's only in 10th grade, so he's bummed that he has to go back to Florida, and he's basically talking shit about Florida. And Clutch is like, "Look, you wouldn't be where you are, like, about to go to college if you didn't have your aunt and you didn't have Florida. So, like, don't say that, you know?"
yep,
And it's a moment where he kind of realizes that, like, he's like, it sucked because I couldn't see them and like she judges me and like my lifestyle, but like if they didn't have her they would be totally different people, and he's grateful.
yeah,
So Uther had come for dinner and then went back to the clubhouse, so they had kind of like all their family there for dinner, which was really sweet.
yeah.
And they're like
It
snuggled
was
up on the couch.
it sounded very wholesome. Like
Yeah.
they were stringing popcorn to make
Yeah, she like made
for
tree decorating party and stuff. So they're, like, snuggling up on the couch, and he's like, "Hey, I need to get up," because she's, like, laying on him, like, on the couch, and he's like, "I need to get up." So he gets up, and then he gets down on one knee and proposes to her, and it's very sweet. And she says yes, obviously, and his brothers are, like, very hyped in the background. It's all
it's
very
cute.
adorable. And that's it. So, yeah, it was so good. And clearly, we still have some outstanding issues with Iris and, Spark not being able to stay away from her. He, turns into a little stalker boy, and that's book 2, so
There is
definitely read that
a
one. That one is also excellent if anybody's interested. But next week, we'll be back here talking to Scarlett Cole about, this series and how it's changed things for her, in her writing life, and so we look forward to that.
see you then.
Bye.